Hello and welcome to Kinjals in Canada, Episode 3. Today I want to deviate from the concept of literacy and focus more on the general concept of what blocks us from achieving more in life. The subject we'll be getting into is surrogate activity. I'm borrowing this term from an interesting character, Theodore J. Kaczynski, better known as the Unabomber. He defines the term thus, quote, "A surrogate activity is an activity that is directed toward an artificial goal that the individual pursues for the sake of, quote, fulfillment, end quote, that he gets from pursuing the goal, not because he needs to attain the goal itself, end quote." For the sake of discussion, I will be using the term struggle to denote an activity that is not a surrogate activity. I want to break this down into a few different points. One, to give some examples of what modern-day surrogate activities are. Two, to justify a few of those surrogate activities. And three, to point out the worst and the most harmful of surrogate activities, which I assume most people are familiar with. I probably don't even have to say it, but you'll find out. In future episodes, I plan to relate these points to the meaningful struggles that we miss out on while we're trying to fulfill these often fruitless tasks. So, to start out, let's look at some examples of surrogate activities. This includes everything from lifting weights to playing video games. Weightlifting has become so popular in the modern day that there are multiple different sports relating to different styles of lifting weights, very few of which come close to breaking out of the definition of surrogate activity. In between workouts and gaming, you'll find things like writing poetry, painting, doing recreational drugs, and playing sports. All of these activities are, generally speaking, unproductive. This isn't an outright condemnation of these activities, as we'll discuss in the next section. What I mean to do is to open your mind a little when it comes to looking at what you do with your time and how you might want to adjust to make yourself feel more meaningful fulfillment at the end of the day. Video games should be in a category of their own because they are the ultimate surrogate activity, as we will expand upon at length. I want to spend some time justifying a few specific surrogate activities. Please feel free to read an immense amount of personal bias into this, as you should, because everyone finds different levels of meaning in different activities. Weightlifting is definitely noteworthy, but also one of the most justifiable amongst surrogate activities, second only to sports like triathlon or team sports, soccer, hockey, etc. Due to the high levels of physical effort involved in weightlifting, individuals tend to feel that they are in a pedestal of achievement, giving them a high level of personal fulfillment, even if they have absolutely nothing to show for it, aside from physical fitness and, strangely enough, even if they don't use this physical fitness to be productive in any way. Some people even go so hard in the gym that they become less productive in their regular day-to-day business. They spend all of their energy lifting weights or save their energy throughout their productive time in order to lift weights. With all that said, the tangible benefits that make your life a lot better every day, they deserve to be listed. I mean, you have attractiveness, confidence, which is of course tied to that attractiveness, and the positive neurological effects gained from constant exercise. The other reason for listing these benefits is to explore how little one must work in the gym to achieve the same results, thus separating the struggle from the surrogate activity. With a healthy diet, regular manual labor, which can be reasonably replaced with a very short-circuit training workout if you don't work that kind of job, and a daily walk, one can achieve all of the above benefits while also being highly productive. The extra work towards almost completely impractical feats of strength, such as a heavy bench press or squat, are what make up the surrogate activity portion of weightlifting. Team sports and individual sports, again such as triathlon, serve the same purpose. There are many practical, tangible benefits, but to be able to throw a football about 90 yards at a man who's running 20 miles per hour is a useless skill in any context outside of the NFL. I personally believe martial skills to be among the highest value struggles and to be in no way a surrogate activity, at least when trained correctly. I'm planning to make multiple episodes on this subject, so you'll need to pardon the lack of explanation here. This goes for art as well. I would guess that well over 99% of art produced today falls purely under the label of surrogate activity. But art must not be ignored when discussing culture. To do so is to fail to engage in culture fully and to lose forever, for all eternity. You will never win again if you have any kind of interest in pursuing cultural advancement, at least, if you forsake art. We'll talk more about that in future episodes, I promise. Now, back to the main subject. The least justifiable surrogate activity is video games. This is not some accident, this is completely by design. Video games are meticulously crafted to convince you that what you are doing has meaning and that your time is being spent in a productive manner. This is what makes games so fun. It's what makes bad games so bad. I can explain. An objectively good game, World of Warcraft, too successful for anybody reasonable to claim that there is nothing good about it. In fact, it's probably too good. I'm going to include a link here to illustrate very clearly the problem with World of Warcraft. If you want to pause now, take a look at that if you're sitting at a computer. If not, just keep listening, watch it later. It's some pretty harrowing stuff. So here's how they get you. Here's how those crafty game developers get you. World of Warcraft starts you out as a total scrub. You're useless. You can barely beat a tiny, diseased wolf to death without sitting down to catch your breath. As you progress, you level up, you learn skills, you learn professions, you gain talent points, you specialize your character, you become a killing, healing, damage mitigating machine. You're a team member now, right? You're useful. It's carefully tuned to scale you up against an ever more powerful enemy. And it makes you team up with people in the process of doing so that you can sort of compare yourself to others and get a social benchmark for where you stand, all to feed you little bits of dopamine as you go. The problem comes when you hit the end, in the game known as endgame. How do you keep progressing? Where do you find meaning in a virtual world that cannot provide you with tangible benefits in the real world? This specific surrogate activity is the process of growth itself, without the usual benefit of growth, that being the achievement of some greater goal. Your brain will rewire itself over time to enjoy the lowest difficulty process imaginable, that is to click with a mouse and hit buttons on a keyboard, and to not expect a tangible reward at the end of it all. Now I want you to imagine for yourself trying to get someone who's been wired this way to achieve a goal through a rigorous process rife with failure and real-world consequences. These are the people you meet in life who do nothing in the real world. You don't even meet them very often because they simply don't go out into the real world to enjoy anything. They've been captured by the worst surrogate activity of all and have paid for the pleasure of it. I would know, seeing as I've done all of this myself. It gets to a point where you even convince yourself that you're a productive member of society and culture, because the same parts of your brain that get hit by doing a good deed in real life, again, by design, hit when teaming up with other players in a video game. Do I think there's a time and a place for video games? Absolutely yes. It would be impossible to recognize the captivating power of gaming without also giving credit to the depth of design that has gone into creating this interactive experience that can impart some real-world knowledge, that can express culture, and it does it all in this new, beautiful medium. I'm really falling into the trap of condemning art because of a lack of measurable benefit. There is more merit to note that I've ignored in order to get my point across. I try to be fair about these subjects, but sometimes you get going and it's easy to outright condemn something and miss more nuanced points. Now, what am I really trying to get at here? I'm not trying to tell you to completely ignore your favorite hobbies. I'm just trying to get you to think about what you could do to include the more justifiable surrogate activities in your life, and to minimize time spent on the less justifiable, sometimes outright harmful activities that you might be wasting a bit of time on. For example, you can structure your fitness routine to be more social in nature. Maybe you could go get some movement, get some manual labor done by volunteering your time to do something for a good cause, right? Go out into your local society. Go and meet people in your neighborhood. See what needs doing. See what people need help with. Help them. You'll wind up associating with more good people. You'll wind up associating with people who want to help other people, who want to be productive, who want to see society succeed. You're going to involve yourself in a compounding effect that brings everyone up with you. This is also going to have a positive effect on any sort of content creation you do. If you like to make if you write poetry, if you write prose, all of that is going to be improved because you're going to be crafting it from your personal experiences, and it's going to be reflecting things that you actually have expertise in instead of just something that you've sat around trying to think up in order to relate to more people. Authenticity is extremely important in content. It's what makes classics classics. I think it's a big part of why we see around us all of this content, all of these different movies, music, books coming out. They all feel empty. Maybe not all of them, but many of them feel empty. They feel devoid of any real experience. I think that might be due to the atomization in our society and in the world at large. We've all been sort of separated from ourselves. We're living outside our own bodies and outside our own cultures. Anyways, I've let myself get off track. I want to expand upon the usefulness of some other surrogate activities in hopes that you will be able to relate this way of thinking to your own life and your own activities. For me, cooking, preparing a meal, it's become a big part of my life. I like to cook for friends and family, bring people together, have fun. In doing so, I've learned over the years different techniques, different knowledge, all relating to the kitchen. You might be wondering how it can be a surrogate activity to feed oneself, seeing as food is one of our primal needs. Ask yourself, if you had no other option but to survive on foraged carbohydrates and venison for the rest of your life, could you survive? The answer should be a resounding yes. But would you enjoy it? That depends on who you are. Personally, I think you would enjoy your meals a little more with access to a variety of spices and some good techniques to make meals different every time you eat. Fine dining is an excellent example of the usefulness of mastery over cooking. Some of the most nutritious meals in the world are present in restaurants that offer a fine dining experience. I think everyone should go and try it at least once in their life. It's expensive, but it's worth experiencing. The surrogate activity part of cooking is to learn how to make a more appetizing meal that does not include additional nutrients, or in many cases may actually strip away important nutrients to achieve a higher level of palatability. In case I haven't made the point clear, surrogate activity leads to the emptying out of meaning behind any given action. When struggle is not present, meaning slowly fades away and is overtaken by something else, often something without practical use, and recently, more often something actively harmful. Look at the average American diet today for a good example of what I'm referring to. Even cigarettes and vapes, the most common ways to enjoy nicotine. They stem from a more meaningful surrogate activity, not very meaningful mind you, but it's got some meaning to it, smoking tobacco. Originally, tobacco had much lower nicotine content and would be appreciated widely for its varying flavors and blends, or for ritual usage in certain spiritual beliefs. For a long time now, that has been reduced to the fastest possible way to take in an addictive and stimulating level of nicotine in the form of cigarettes and vapes. This is just another example of how, without intentional, planned struggle, everything we do eventually loses purpose and thus direction. To move forward in a meaningful way and to break out of nihilism, we must seek to bring meaning back into our actions by analyzing what we do daily and relating it to the real world around us. Do not cook only for yourself. Do not smoke or drink alone and only for the drunkenness of it. Seek out the flavor in life and share it with others, such that you might find a deeper flavor for yourself. The fabric of society must be dyed with color for a culture to form and for it to be worth preserving in any way. If you think back to the traditional clothing of your ancestors, you won't find many outfits that fail to express the vibrant colors of life that got us to where we are today. I hope this has helped you in some way to see the way that we hollow ourselves out without meaning to. It's really not an intentional thing. In the next episode, I plan to focus entirely on making those little adjustments to life that sort of help to bring us all together in the common struggle and fill life with meaning. Anyways, for now, thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time. Oh, one quick side note to add before I finish this up. I'm not condoning some of the more extreme actions of the Unabomber, by the way, just to be totally clear. He was a prodigal mathematician who lost his mind and wrote some very compelling and interesting literature in the process. Don't mail any big surprises to your local universities just because the term surrogate activities makes sense to you. Okay? Goodbye.